Hey folks, if I was to ask you what's the one thing that everybody on this planet wants, you might come up with a few different answers. You might say money, you might say power, you might say possessions, you might say love, you might say peace, you might say a whole lot of things. But I would argue that the one thing that they all have in common, that everybody wants, you and me and everybody else, is happiness. We all want to be happy. And for most of us, life is an ongoing pursuit of that one thing, which sometimes seems rather elusive, doesn't it? Happiness. Or, to use another word, joy. Joyfulness, that feeling of that everything is fantastic, that we are in that good place. We are happy, we are joyful. What if I was to tell you that there is an unlimited source of joy that we can all tap into? And that is what we're going to be talking about today. We're on the fourth of our series on the Brahmaviharas, the four immeasurables, and I'm excited to be bringing this to you today. If you haven't caught the previous 3 episodes about the Brahmaviharas, then you might want to subscribe to the channel maybe, and have a look, follow us, go back and have a look at the other videos on the Brahmaviharas. I'm sure you'll find them very interesting. And the Brahmaviharas, as I say, there's 4 of them. So we've got metta, which means loving kindness. We've got karuna, which means compassion. We've got the one that we're going to be on today, which is called Mudita. This is number 3 of the Brahmaviharas, but this is video number 4 because there was an introductory video at the start to just introduce the topic to you. So if you're interested, please subscribe. If you enjoy this video today, why not give us a thumbs up? If you've got any comments that you want to make at all, please write them in the comments box below, because I'd be very happy and very interested to see what you've got to say and what feedback you've got to bring to this subject. Because like yourselves, I am learning every day. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm somebody that is on an educational trip, if you like, which started on the day that I was born, and I'm still on that educational trip now. I'm still travelling through life. I'm still learning every day. The day that I check out will be the day that I stop learning in this life, but I'm sure I will continue wherever it is that I am after that. So, Mudita, the third of the 4 Brahmaviharas, the 4 immeasurables. And we looked at how these 4 immeasurables are 4 virtues, if you like. They're 4 divine states. And the word Brahmavihara literally means abiding place of the divine, of the Brahma. So they are states in which we can abide, we can stay, we can rest. But they are properties that each one of us can develop in our lives. And of course, the best vehicle to transport us into this area is the vehicle of meditation. Meditation is a fantastic tool, and that is the main topic of what we speak of on this particular channel and in my particular talks, because I am a meditation teacher and I like to share what I've learnt, what I am learning with you all. So, Mudita, what does it actually mean? Well, as you see on the board, it actually means empathetic. Sometimes it's called sympathetic joy. I like empathetic joy a little bit better, because sympathy is a little bit not so interactive. It's just like, yeah, I sympathise with you. Empathy as we understand, is a shared sense of feeling something, a particular emotion, a particular sharing of emotions with another person, another being. So I'll go back to my little illustration, which I shared with you last time. So we've got our box. We've got loving kindness, which, as I said, covers an area. It goes from north, south, east and west. It covers an area. We spread out. And when we looked at metta, loving kindness, and loving kindness meditation, in loving kindness meditation, we spread out loving kindness, loving unconditional love to all beings. We start with ourselves, and as we looked at, it's a little bit like the layers of an onion. So we start from the centre and we work outwards gradually. So to close people, to people that we're not so close to, maybe to people that we find difficulty with, and then gradually out to people further and further, beings further and further away from us. But last week we looked at compassion and how compassion actually gives depth to loving kindness. It's not a separate thing in itself. It's an aspect of loving kindness. And what it gives us is, you can see we've gone from a rectangle shape to a solid cuboid shape. We've got volume. We've not just got area, we've got volume, because the depth to which we show loving kindness, is our compassion. And we looked at how compassion is not sympathy. As I said, it's not sympathy, it's not even empathy. It's a separate thing, because it comes from, karuna comes from the same root word in Sanskrit as we get the word karma. And karma is an action word. It means it's an active thing. So in the same way, compassion is active. We saw that it's actually doing something. It's actually expressing that. So it's not just being a bystander. It's actually interacting, whether it's wishing somebody the best and maybe, saying a mantra, or maybe a prayer for somebody. That's compassion. Maybe it's actually physically doing something for somebody. Maybe it's actually helping somebody in need in a physical sense. But that gives depth to loving kindness, and it makes it three-dimensional. We'll take it a step further and we'll look at the other side of the coin today. So if compassion is looking at the suffering of others and us interacting with the suffering of others, if we look at the other side of the coin, we find empathetic joy, which is mudita. So that's what we'll be looking at today. It is another aspect that makes loving kindness actually be a three-dimensional thing with depth. So what do I mean by empathetic joy? What is it? Well, as I said, there is, open to every one of us, there is an unlimited amount of joy. It's not limited. Joy is not necessarily a word that we use all the time, so I may interchange that with the word happiness, because happiness is probably a word that we use more often. There is more to joy in the sense of it, but I want to make this relatable to us all so that we can understand what we're actually talking about. So to be joyful, we get the word rejoice from joyful, which is actually feeling really pleased, really happy for someone, about something. We rejoice in something. It's one of those words that I'm sure will come up in the Christmas carols not too far away. The word rejoice, joyful. This is a word and a term that's used often, not only obviously in the Eastern traditions, but also in Christianity as well. The word joy, we find the word joy often in the Bible. At the birth of Jesus, there was great joy, etc. And this is a principle that we find in these different traditions and in these different religions as well. So, do you want to be more happy? Of course you want to be more happy. We all want to be more happy. Who wants to be miserable? You could possibly argue maybe some people, you really feel like they just do want to be miserable. But deep down inside, we all want to be happy. We all want to have a happy life. And what sympathetic joy, empathetic joy, mudita is all about. It's all about sharing in the joy, the happiness of others around us. And often we'll find that a person that's really close to us, if something good happens to them, if they're really happy about something, if something good has happened to them, if they've received something that's really blessed them, if they're in a really good place in their life, we can see that they are in a place of joy, of happiness. And of course, if you're close to that person, they're a close relation to you, maybe your partner, maybe a close friend, maybe even a pet. When something good happens to them, then you feel the happiness as well. You feel the joy in your own heart. And while we're talking about the heart, I can relate this quite easily back to the chakras. And as we saw with the Anahata chakra, it's the centre of our love, our compassion, our kindness towards others. It's right in the centre of our chest, and it's where those energies converge. The Shiva energy coming from above, down from the crown chakra, from the divine, and the Shakti energy which rises up from the earth, bringing these energies to a focal point at the centre of the main 7 chakras, which is the heart chakra, the Anahata chakra. And if you like, if you see the chakra as it's depicted as that spinning wheel, a vortex, if you like, I almost in my mind I envisage it as like the aperture of a camera. If you remember the old cameras before, obviously the digital types and phone cameras, etc., that we have now, the old single lens reflex cameras would have this kind of aperture which kind of opened up and expanded like that to let more light or less light in. So when I picture the heart chakra, and any of the chakras for that matter, I imagine them, I visualise them as being a bit like a camera aperture which can open up. And as we worked on our chakras, again, we've got a series on the chakra system which you might want to check out as well, also in our channel. As we went through the chakras, we saw that the chakras can open, they can be balanced, they can be imbalanced, but when those energies are flowing out properly, then we are a fully functional being. And as the heart, the Anahata chakra, is the centre for love, kindness, compassion, all of these things, then this is the place where compassion will flow out and joy will also flow out. These are natural aspects of love and loving kindness. So this is why it quite neatly fits together. So we've got the teachings of the chakras and how they work in the body, and then we've also got the teaching of the Brahmaviharas, and the two things coming from both from a yogic tradition originally, although the Brahmaviharas are probably more commonly and recognised in the Buddhist tradition. They did begin in the yogic tradition, and they will be found in the ancient Indian texts as well. So as the heart chakra opens, it's like a doorway. If you can imagine opening a door that allows compassion to flow out, allows love to flow out, and allows joy to flow out. So in order for it to flow out for ourselves, we've got to have that love and joy in our own hearts. And as with all of the Brahmaviharas, we have a practice of Brahmavihara meditation where we will wish certain things upon other beings. So generally the practice is to start with oneself, in our own life, in our own heart. But of course, in the ancient and in the Eastern traditions, it's kind of quite understood that we have a love for ourselves. We love ourselves. We want to look after ourselves. We want to nurture ourselves. And this may be coming, I don't know, this could possibly be based on the fact that possibly life is not quite as comfortable perhaps in some of the Eastern cultures as it is here in the West. We kind of surround ourselves with comforts, toys, you name it, everything that we can to make ourselves comfortable. And what happens, a lot of people are not happy. Happiness does not depend upon what your possessions are, how much money you have, what the things are that you have in your life that you build around yourself. True happiness and joy actually comes from the inside. And it's about contentment. It's about being in a place where we're actually comfortable with ourselves and with our life. So from a Western perspective, it might actually be more beneficial to start with wishing this joy or recognising this joy in somebody that we love, in somebody that's close to us, in somebody that we have a close relationship to, somebody that we're appreciative of. It might be, in some cases, easier to actually be starting from that point. And as I said, it's almost like an onion. So we start from the centre and we've got layer upon layer going outwards in the same way that we did with loving kindness and with compassion, with metta and with karuna. The same with mudita. So what do I mean when I say there's a limitless supply of joy is available? Well, all around us there's a whole world, and we go out and we interact with people, sometimes with nature, but we go and interact with the world. And as we go out, yes, we see people who are suffering, as we looked at last time with compassion, but also as we go out, we see people who are happy, who are joyful, who are having a good time, who are in a good place, who good, positive, joyful things are happening to. It's not all doom and gloom out there. And it doesn't really matter whether those people are spiritually minded or whether they're not spiritually minded. People will have moments, times in their life where they are happy, where they're in a good place. And the reason why I say there's an unlimited amount of joy is because what Mudita is all about is it is actually about us receiving. It's actually us wishing that the joy that that person is experiencing, that it would continue, that it would grow, that it would carry on, and that they would continue to experience that joy. And if we wish another person that, then in return it will make us feel joyful in ourselves. If we feel happy for another person in their happiness, then we can't help but increase our own joy that's in our own heart. It's a bit like lighting a candle and then taking another candle and lighting from that candle another candle, and then another candle, and then another candle. It doesn't really matter how many candles you light. You will not diminish the light that's in that candle, but you can share the light from one candle out to as many other candles as you have. In the same way, we have an unlimited resource that is available to each and every one of us, and that is the joy of others around us. Yes, it's as simple as that. This is a really, really simple concept. It's a really, really simple principle, but it is incredibly powerful. Usually, as we go through life, we're waiting for something to happen. We can possibly take joy in looking back at the past and something that happened to us, and maybe that'll make us smile. Maybe that will give us happy thoughts. More of the time, more often than that, we will be looking forward to something that is happening in the future, that is going to happen, something that we have planned. Maybe a special event, maybe a wedding, maybe the birth of a child, maybe a holiday, maybe a new job, a new house, Christmas, you name it. But what we often don't do is we often don't live in the present moment. And living in the present moment, being mindful, learning to be here in the now, is the place that we need to be in order to really appreciate life. So how do we have joy in this moment that we're in? Well, as we go out into the world, we can appreciate things. And things that we can do to increase our own joy is, one of the things is to appreciate one thing at a time. Now, I'm sure we all do this. Life in the West is so fast-paced often, and it's at our own making. This is the way civilization, as we call it, civilization runs. We are expected to keep all of these plates spinning in the air at once. You've all seen the man spinning the plates on the sticks and whatever, and he's got a row of them here, and he's keeping them all going. That's the way we live our lives often. We have so many things going on at a time, and it's almost a badge of honour, isn't it, to multitask. And often through the years I've worked probably with more ladies than I have men, and the common thing that a lot of ladies have said to me is, oh, you men, you just can't multitask. Because of course a lot of women have to bring up children, maybe look after a house, maybe hold down a career as well. And often it's been a little bit of a cop-out, certainly in our society, whereby men have been able to sort of get away with possibly not doing as many things as their partners, as the mother of their children maybe have done, because of the kind of the stereotypical roles, if you like. I'd like to think that in the 21st century that we're moving ahead of that a little bit, and that men are sharing the load, but you get the gist. It's almost a badge of honour if you do more things all at once. And in the workplace, in our careers, it's almost like, yeah, how many different tasks can you have going on simultaneously? And the more tasks you have going on all at the same time, the more you may be appreciated by the company that you work for, by the organisation, because you have all of this responsibility and you have all these things going on all at once. But of course we know these sort of things lead to a lot of stress, anxiety, and sadly even the early demise of a lot of people, because they just cannot cope with it, and their bodies can't cope with it, their minds can't cope with it. It can lead to mental and physical ill health. But the truth is, if we can come to terms with doing one, as much as possible, and it's not always possible, but when we get the opportunity, if we can do one thing at a time and enjoy that one thing that we're doing. I'm sure we've all been sort of caught up in a particular moment in our lives, and we felt that amazing joy, maybe standing on a beach at sunset and just looking at the horizon and the sun as it sets. And you can get lost in that, and you can really experience a deep sense of joy. Something very simple sometimes. Maybe one thing I can relate to from my own experience is if I occasionally get the opportunity to sit down and eat a meal quietly, I've really found lately that if I sit down and I just focus on that thing that I'm eating, I can really appreciate the flavours, can really enjoy that meal more, and I really get a lot more pleasure and joy from eating that meal. Now, mostly what do? We're sitting there, we're eating, we're looking at our phone, we may be watching the television, we may be chatting to somebody, we may be reading a book, whatever, and we almost feel like we are wasting our lives if we're only doing one thing at a time. But if you look back on your life and you think about the times when you really experience a deep joy for something, then I think you can agree with me that it's usually been that your focus of attention, and of course in meditation the focus of attention is vitally important. When we focus our attention on one single thing, that can be quite a profound sense of happiness and joy to us. One really pleasant thing. So think about that. Maybe as you go through your life every day, maybe you can think, can I just isolate this one thing that I'm doing and just do it on its own? There's a magic in everyday things. Sometimes it's just the simple things. Sometimes it's just going out and just walking, maybe just looking at the sky, maybe looking at the trees, maybe interacting with your pet, maybe just, sitting down with the cat or the dog and just, really having some kind of special time with them. And of course, moments spent with your loved ones, whether that's a human, whether that's an animal, somebody that you're close to, just really taking joy and appreciating that person, that being in your life and that moment that you're in. This is all sort of basic mindfulness really, but it is so key to joy and where joy actually comes from and how we generate that joy inside our own hearts. And if we all remember when we were small children, little toddlers, your earliest recollections, I think you'll find that it was the pleasure was often about discovering new things. And when we were small children, everything is new. When we're born into this world, everything is a discovery. We have to discover all of this, even if we believe in reincarnation, that we've had other lives before. The memory of that is gone. So we have to discover the world and our life and everything in it afresh. And if you can remember being a child, and you had an imagination, but you saw things for the first time, you really appreciated things. If we can get back into that mindset of being like a small child. Jesus said, didn't he, that in order to experience the kingdom of heaven, you had to become like a little child. And I believe that he was actually referring to this sense that there's that sense of wonder and discovery in small children, that somehow as we get older we're told to grow up and we start to take things for granted, and we don't appreciate things because they're not new anymore. And of course that leads to dissatisfaction, and it leads to us wanting to have new things all of the time. We need something new. What's the next thing I can move on to? And it's the whole fact that we're moving away from this attitude that we had as small children of everything is new, everything can be appreciated. And really, if you go outside and you just look at nature, you look at the world around you, not so much, to a certain extent even the human world, the man-made world, there's something new to discover in that. But of course, we spend so much of our time in this constructed man-made world. It's nice to get back out there and look at nature. And as the late great Alan Watts said, the world is not made of straight lines. The world is wiggly. Everything out there is a wiggly line. Everything is wonderful and unique. The world is not a construct. We like to, as human beings, we like to make everything square and put everything in boxes, all these straight lines that we create. You go out in nature, everything is beautifully made and very unique. You can't look at two snowflakes and they'd be different. You can't look at two blades of grass and they'd be the same rather. You cannot look at two grains of sand and find that they are exactly the same, because everyone is unique and nature is unique. So there is an endless source of joy for us out there if we go out and discover that as well. So, which brings me to the main central point of Mudita meditation, which is being happy and joyful for all the good, the positive, the nice, the happy things that happen to others around us, and us taking joy in that for ourselves, being pleased for that person. Of course, the natural human emotion is often envy. It's often jealousy. It's sometimes resentment. It sometimes might even be anger. It's okay sometimes for somebody that's really close to us to do really well. Maybe they have a promotion in the job. Maybe they have a new thing. Maybe they're just going through a really good time. Maybe they're just happy. And we feel happy for them because they're happy. When it gets more difficult is when it's somebody that maybe is not so close to us. And certainly if it's somebody that we really don't get on with, really is a bit of an antagonist to us, that we don't really get on that well with, when something good happens to them, it's very easy to feel resentment or jealousy, frustration, or even anger towards them. But what Mudita does is it helps us to start first with ourselves. And as I said, sometimes ourself isn't the easiest one, but certainly we can feel that sense of joy. If we're parents and our child, if they're happy about something, if they are joyful, if they're really excited and pleased and happy, smiling, laughing about something, then it's really easy for us to kind of just get into that heart attitude. Just like a mother with a little child really feels happy and joyful for that child when something good happens to that child, when they're in a good place, then it's easy for us to feel that. And that's often easier than actually feeling it for ourselves. Sometimes we don't feel worthy. Sometimes we feel a bit guilty to be enjoying ourselves, to be happy. Possibly if there are other people around us that aren't so happy, that aren't so joyful, that aren't going through such a good time, sometimes we feel a bit guilty. So there's the chance with Mudita and with the Mudita meditation practice, which I will go through in a little while, to actually vary this. So we can start from ourselves if we're quite happy, if we're quite able to feel joy for ourselves and feel in a happy place and feel that we're able to wish ourselves happiness. But if we find that difficult, then it might be good to start with that close person and then next move out to maybe ourselves. Although we've looked at this about, as I said, starting from us and moving outwards, it really is possible to be flexible with these Brahmaviharas practices. It is possible to alternate the order because it's about learning to gradually express love, kindness, compassion, joyfulness towards all beings. But we have to be realistic, and we have to realise that we can't just start and say, may everything, every being in the universe be wonderfully happy, free from pain, suffering, be joyful, etc. We can do that, but they will be just empty words unless we first felt that emotion within our own hearts. We've worked that up, we've worked it out, firstly to those that are closest to us, then to maybe the neutral people, then maybe to the more difficult people, then maybe to everybody afterwards. So that's the reason why we kind of do this. So as I say, joy is an antidote for envy, jealousy, resentment and anger. It is the antidote for it. So how do we actually practice this? Well, as ever, I have we always need to do something with our hands for a start. So there are some good mudras that we can use, which we've looked at before when we're using we're looking at the chakra system. So this is a very nice one, which we can have. This is known as the Hansi or inner smile mudra. So we put the tip of the thumb, the index finger, the middle finger and the ring finger together like that. And then we extend the little finger or the pinky finger like this. This is known as the inner smile mudra. So we can do that two-handed like that. If you like to sit in a cross-legged position, maybe with your hands on the knees, that's a nice one. If you prefer to keep your hands in your lap, then as I said before, we can relate this to the Anahata, the heart chakra, and the Anahata mudra, which we did look at before. There's two slight variations of this one, but essentially what we do is we put our palms of our hands together like this, and then we fold in the middle fingers and the ring fingers like this. So if you see, we've got the thumbs, the index fingers and the little fingers extended like this. So that's a nice one to sit with our hands in our laps. The variation on that one is to actually take, and this is one that I like, is to take the tips of the fingers and actually place them. So that's, where are we? I'm getting a little bit tangled up here. So there we go. That's it. Okay. So I'm actually placing the tips of the fingers there between those. So I'm still extending the index fingers, thumbs, little fingers, but then if you can see, I'm actually placing the tips of those fingers between there, which is a quite nice and comfortable one if you want to sit for a prolonged period of time in meditation on this, or the heart chakra or the Mudita practice. This is a nice one because of course it relates to the heart, and all of the Brahmaviharas do relate to the heart chakra quite profoundly and deeply. So this is a nice one for keeping our hands in our laps there, like that or like that. Doesn't really matter which one we want to do. Okay, so that's that. Then of course, mantra wise, we can use the mantra that we've been looking at recently, which is the Brahmavihara mantra, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, which means may all beings everywhere be happy and free. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. We looked at that one. That's a good one because that's obviously in wishing happiness, we're wishing joy on those as well. It's a nice one to use when we're doing our japa mala with our mala beads. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. And as I end up with Bhavantu is the point where I release the bead, and that's in my heart, that's in my mind, that's the freedom. I'm freeing the bead. So maybe happy, which is the top edge of the finger, and then maybe they be free as it drops down there. So that's one. The other one, of course, going back to the Anahata, we have the Bij, the seed mantra for the Anahata, which is Yum, Yum, Yum. And when we looked at the chakras, so if you want to check out the video on the heart chakra, you'll get some more of information about that and how that actually works. But you actually feel the resonance of that in the chest when if experiment again with it at what sort of pitch you want, whether it's a low yum or whether it's a yum, but just get that pitch of that particular note as it comes out to the best point where you feel the resonance in the chest at the heart chakra point. When you repeat that mantra, again, great one for Japamala. So as we go through, we can do that. That's a nice, doing japa and holding the mudra as well is a great way to sort of start off to get into that practice. Because my own practice, I like to use different types of meditation in order to go in. I'm not an advocate where I say one type of meditation works for everything and everybody. By all means, try different types of meditation. But all of these things are to do with the heart, to do with love. So they all fit in together. And it's about us getting to that place where eventually, and I say eventually, we can actually express joy for any person when they are going through a joyful situation. Something good is happening to them, something positive has happened to them. We can feel happy, joyful and positive with them as well. Eventually. It's not always easy to start with. That's why we start with those who are close to us. Again, and I can't reiterate that enough. That's so important that we actually feel that. And that's why it's good to use this Bij, this seed mantra for the Anahata, because we can actually feel that in the chest. And as we feel it in the chest, we can visualize the colour green of that particular chakra, and that helps us to, as it were, to say, open that aperture of the heart and allow the love to flow out. So the actual practice of Mudita meditation, what we would do is we would start with saying, so if I start with myself, if I'm comfortable with starting with myself, I can say, I can first of all just relate to, if I'm feeling happy at the moment about something, if there's something in my life that I feel particularly happy about today at this particular moment, then I can tap into that, and I can just feel how that feels to be happy, to be joyful about that thing that's happening to me. Maybe something I've received, maybe a situation that I'm in, maybe I'm just having a good day, maybe I've just recovered from an illness which I have, and I'm just feeling happy to be alive and healthy again. That's something that I can feel happy for. So I can start by saying, may I continue to feel joyful, to feel happy about this thing. May my joy continue. And then I can go on to say, may my joy grow. And then I may say, may I find other ways to possibly things to be feel joyful about going forward. You can really tailor this to your own, what works for you, basically. So if that works for you, then that's great. Certainly, you can use this as a template, but you can adapt it. Maybe you want to bring in happiness, peace. May I continue to be as happy as I am today. May I continue to be as happy as I was on that day when this happened. You may have to go back in your memory to a time, because maybe you're not going through a particularly good time at the moment, but I'm sure if you go back in your memory, you'll find a time that you felt particularly joyful and happy. And if you can tap into that sensation, you can just picture, you can visualize that situation that you were in when you felt that joy. Then what we want to do is we want to recreate that sense, that emotion in the heart. When we've done that, we can move to a person that's close to you. And again, if you have a time that you can remember them being particularly happy and joyful about a particular thing, they had a really good day, or maybe they're the sort of person that's just generally upbeat and happy. And maybe you can just repeat again for them, may they continue in this joy. May the joy that's in their heart or that happened at that particular time, may that continue in their life. May they be at peace. And then we go in the next stage, again, similarly to the karuna, metta, loving kindness and compassion meditations. We then go to a neutral person. So maybe a neighbour, maybe a colleague at work that we're not particularly a close friend to, but somebody that we'd know, perhaps say hello to them, but we know them. We can picture their face in our mind. And if you can picture maybe a time when something good happened to them, or you can just picture them being happy and joyful, and you can again express these sentiments towards them. May their joy continue. May their joy grow. May they be at peace. After this comes the slightly more tricky one. Again, as we said, with compassion and loving kindness, it may not be at your present point in time, it may not be that you're in a situation where you want to think about your mortal enemy, if you have a mortal enemy, or somebody that's really hurt you in your life, but maybe just somebody that's a little bit antagonistic towards you, somebody that you find difficult, somebody that perhaps you have a hard time with them, or they're not the sort of the person that you particularly want to bump into if you can help it, or that you don't necessarily want to have an interaction with. But get this person, get their image of their face in your mind, and picture them in a good time. Something good's happened to them, something happy, and just again, may they continue to be joyful. May their joy continue to grow. May they be at peace. Eventually, the practice is, the more we do it, the further out we can reach, and maybe there will come a time when even somebody that has really hurt you, that has really caused you a lot of problem, somebody that really you don't get on with, maybe you can actually extend that to them at some point in time. I'm not advocating that you do that to start with. If you're comfortable with it, that's fine. And certainly, as we looked at with compassion, if that person, if you're sending out positive emotions towards them, you'll start to feel more positive towards them. And when you do meet them, when your paths do cross, then that's that is a tangible thing. That is something that can be sensed and people can tell. And maybe you won't scowl when you see them. Maybe you'll have a smile on your face. And maybe you'll not just receive back the positive energy in your own heart from wishing that, but maybe they'll start to have a more positive attitude towards you. Maybe they'll cut you some slack. Maybe they won't be as difficult as they were before. And then finally, we can finish off with the wishing joy, happiness on all beings. May they all be happy and joyful. May their joy continue. May their joy continue to grow. May they be at peace. So that's basically the practice of Mudita, how it works. But as I say, this is an unlimited source of joy and happiness. So, as we go through our day every day, we're all conditioned to, if something good's happening, we feel happy. If the sun's shining, we're happy. If it's raining, we can be miserable. If we're cold, we're not as happy as if we're nice and warm, or maybe we get too hot and that makes us not so happy. But the whole point with the Brahmaviharas is eventually to get to the point where we do have equanimity, and that's the one that we'll be looking at next. But eventually we get to the point whereby the way that we feel in our heart and the way that we relate to others in the world around us is not based upon the things that are happening, but is based on the condition of our own heart. And of course, good, bad, up, down, left, right, is all this concept of duality, that where there's light there has to be darkness, etc. This is life. Life is a roller coaster ride, and everything isn't going to be smooth, plain sailing, because it's not a straight line. As I said, the world is full of wiggly lines, and life is one wiggly line, just like the line on an oscilloscope. When we see a wave, life is a wave, and we have to flow with the flow of life, flow with the Tao, go with Wu Wei, as Taoism describes it. And we will find eventually, through the practice of meditation, that we start to realise that the state that we have on the inside does not have to be determined by the things that are going on out there in the world outside. We can look at everything and we can interact with life, but we don't have to be reactionary. We can react without being reactionary. We don't constantly have to be, oh, this is fantastic, oh, that's terrible. We can be more, live life more on an even keel, whereby we go through life. Yes, we're smiling, we're happy, we're enjoying life, but it's not one high and then another crashing low. This is understood by the many different Eastern traditions, and it's something that we can learn from in the West. So I hope this made sense to you today. Thank you for listening. As I say, do pop a like on there if you've found it helpful. Do check out the other videos and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. I will see you next time when we will be looking at upekkha or upeksha, which is equanimity, which is the fourth and final of the 4 Brahmaviharas. So until that time, thank you so much and namaskaram.